Hey everyone, welcome back to Flexify to Your Job Search Evolve, the podcast where we discuss careers, tech, and the economy. I'm your host, Trina, and today we're diving into one of my favorite workplace paradoxes. Managers who somehow think you're too inexperienced to handle your actual job, but perfectly capable of doing theirs. You know exactly what I'm talking about. That manager or supervisor that explains basic computer functions to you like you just discovered electricity, but then slides over with, hey, can you just handle the quarterly budget real quick? You're so good with numbers. The disconnect in the modern workplace is paralyzing. It's like watching someone explain how to use a telephone to an engineer, then asking that same engineer to redesign their communication system. I had the chance to catch up with an old colleague, Tara, last week, and the names have been changed to protect the innocent, obviously. And she says her manager literally walked her through how to schedule a meeting during a team session. Step-by-step instructions, complete with printed screenshots. Then, not 20 minutes later, the same manager is asking Tara to just handle the client presentation for the account, because Tara has such great communication skills. That account is a six-figure client. But sure, let's make sure it knows how to click send meeting invite. Here's what's really happening, and I think we all know this regardless of when we enter the workforce. It's not about competence, it's about accountability. These managers and supervisors have figured out the ultimate workplace strategy. Maintain authority through condescension while transferring responsibility through flattery. Think about it. When they treat you like you can't handle routine tasks, they get to position themselves as the experienced mentor, the essential leader. But when they need actual work done, the challenging stuff, the stuff that affects the bottom line, suddenly you're the expert, or so much better at this than I am. It's genius in a completely toxic way. And here's the real problem. When things go sideways, guess who's accountable? Not the person who doesn't understand the new systems or isn't as detail focused as you are. Nope, it's you. The person who was apparently skilled enough to handle their responsibilities, but not respected enough to be treated as a professional equal. I had a manager once, let's call him Brad, who would literally hover over my workspace and narrate what I should do next. He'd point at my screen and say things like, don't forget to save your work before you close that. This same Brad asked me to completely restructure our department's entire project management system because I was so organized and tech savvy. When I suggested we might want to collaborate on planning, since he was the department head, he brushed me off and said he had complete confidence in my abilities. The project took 3 months. When it succeeded, Brad presented it to upper management as his strategic initiative. When one component needed adjustment 6 months later, Brad made sure everyone understood it was my system that had the weakness. Now, I'm not saying all managers operate this way. I've worked for some exceptional leaders who actually knew how to lead effectively. But for those of you dealing with the delegation without recognition crowd, here's what I've learned over the years. Be sure to create a paper trail. When they ask you to handle their responsibilities, document it. Something like, just so I'm completely clear, you'd like me to manage the Johnson proposal from start to finish. Should I list you as the primary contact, or should clients communicate directly with me? Watch how quickly they reconsider when they realize you're establishing a record. Always ask questions that highlight the contradiction. Something like, I want to make sure I handle this properly. When you present this to the executive team, how should I prepare the questions about the strategic decisions I'll be making? That forces them to acknowledge that they're asking you to do work they should understand and own. And last but not least, protect your actual role. When they approach you with their task, try this. I'm happy to help, but I'm concerned about falling behind on the responsibilities you've assigned to my position. Should I reprioritize the Henderson analysis to focus on this instead? It's absolutely remarkable how quickly they remember what your actual job description says when you frame it that way. Look, whether you've been in the workforce for 5 years or 50, we've all seen this dynamic. We all have bills to pay and careers to maintain. Sometimes that means working with managers who've turned responsibility shifting into an art form. But you don't have to accept being treated like you're simultaneously too inexperienced to exist and too valuable to lose. You're not their personal assistant, you're absolutely not their safety net, and you're definitely not their fall guy. Perfect timing. I just got a text message from my former colleague. Apparently, Brad just asked the newest team member to completely reorganize the system drive because she's so good with organization, right after spending 30 minutes explaining how the office eFax works. The more things change, the more they stay exactly the same. Here's the thing that connects all of us. Regardless of our generation or when we started working, we all recognize competence when we see it, and we all know the difference between genuine leadership and workplace theater. Good managers invest in growth and take responsibility for outcomes. Poor managers create elaborate performances where they're simultaneously indispensable and uninvolved. Don't participate in the performance. Do excellent work, document everything, and remember that your professional skills have value independent of whether your manager acknowledges them appropriately. That's going to wrap it up for today's episode. Until next time, keep your work where it belongs and their work where it belongs. And remember, you know more than they pretend you do, and you're worth more than they act like you are. Be blessed.